And the fact that some people have been waiting 30 years for this. It's a bit of a scam, to be honest. Hi guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show. Hello if you're new. So today's video is going to be a review of Coming to America, the sequel of Coming to America. I hope everybody is doing as well as can be, and I really do hope everybody is being as proactive as possible in supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. And if you're still on the lookout for some resources, I've linked some in the description. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts on my commentary. I'm always up for a chat, I'm always up for a debate. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't, give it a dislike, no hard feelings. And if you really like this video, consider subscribing and helping your girl out. So it's been like a good 30 years since the Coming to America film, and the sequel is finally here. And of course, a lot of people are excited about it. I feel like the hype has been built up since the announcement, because I feel like people just never thought it was ever going to come. So me personally, I was excited. From what my memory serves me, it's been a while since I watched it, but I really enjoyed it. I feel like Coming to America is an iconic film, and it's an iconic black film, and everybody who was in the original was pretty much in this film as well. I've already heard whispers, and I already know there's going to be a bit of a diaspora debate. I can feel it coming, the whole African versus African American argument. I can see it coming on the horizon, and most of the things that I've heard are basically, obviously, you know, Coming to America, we know what it is. We know it's, you know, Zamunda, basically a stereotypical portrayal of Africa. We know it's a comedy, and we know they're going to be taking the piss out of Africa. We know they're going to be taking the piss out of African culture. And a lot of people did complain that the first film was very reductive, and now that the sequel is coming up, they're kind of like, you know, it's a dated narrative, and we just need to dead it. I'm African, I'm Congolese, shout out to all my Congolese people, yes. So in terms of what I feel about it, I think that the points are valid. Even if you enjoy Coming to America, it is a stereotypical portrayal of Africa and African culture. So I feel like you can't expect some African people not to be offended. So before watching this film, I kind of just thought it's fair game, but at the same time, in terms of mainstream Hollywood, there isn't much indigenous African or even first-gen African representation. And most of the representation that there is, it's either comedic value or fantasy, which is very limiting representation. I feel like now generally people are less ignorant to the fact that there is a range of cultures in Africa. It's not just one monolith, and we don't all just live in huts, and how we do have Wi-Fi and internet and running water. I feel like there's less and less of that ignorance, and I feel like there is less and less of these stereotypical African skits, African jokes. I feel like you do see it here and there though. You do see it here and there, like in Dear White People. I said, like, there was a skit and She's Gotta Have It. So you do see it around, but you definitely see it less often than you would say in the 90s, 2000s, even 2010. You see it less. You know, we have seen some improvements in the mainstream media, but it's very small. Like, the only progressive indigenous African or first-gen African roles that I've seen is in Insecure, with Molly's character, Sex Education, Eric. But those are just TV shows. I've never actually seen it in films, to be honest. They're always a bit dodgy in the films. But anyway, you hear the quote, representation matters, and it does, because even though I enjoyed Coming to America, going to school, I had to deal with all of the fucking stupid jokes, the Zamunda jokes, you know, the reductive, racist jokes. I had to deal with them, honey, because this is the only representation that we're showing on TV. So a lot of people, so I know a lot of first-gen Africans had to deal with the foolishness. And that's what happens when the only representation in the West is these reductive, stereotypical representations. So I feel like the points about it are valid, whether you just feel like whether you feel like, oh, I'm still going to enjoy the film anyway, these points are still valid. But before watching the film, I was just like, well, you know what, I enjoyed Coming to America, so you know what, yeah, we do need to do better, but I still want to watch this film. But after watching it, I do think it's tired. It's getting tired now, and I feel like we need to move on. And I know it's just going to bring on the diaspora debate, like, oh, they only portray us like this and that, and, you know, African Americans only want to see us portrayed as this and that. But I feel like everybody needs to remember who the real perpetrator is, which is Hollywood, because it's Hollywood who is making these films, and only these films. But I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on it though, because obviously people are clicking on this video for different reasons. Do you care or not? or do you see the point but still gonna watch it, or are you just here to see the review and weren't gonna watch it because of this? I'd be interested to hear from you guys. When the trailer did come out, I know there was some noise because there was a genocide joke in the trailer. Notably, they removed that from the film. We didn't hear the genocide joke that was in the trailer, which I think was a good thing. I think that joke was, when I heard it in the trailer, I was definitely like, oh, they took it there, they took it there. So I think it's smart that they took it out. Don't know why they thought it'd be cute to put it in there in the first place. I mean, people's family being wiped out, you know, people suffering so much devastation. I feel like if you find that funny, it's a bit weird. It's a bit weird. It's a bit sadistic. Feedback works, guys. Feedback works. Obviously, the stereotypes, as you can imagine, do continue. So the stereotype for Indigenous Africans in the film were, they carry on the kind of Zamunda versus Nextdoria kind of corrupt government slash rebel government.
I came here for blood.
I feel like that was to be expected. But there was one stereotype which I was just like, it felt very weird and uncomfortable in the film, was the hypersexualization of Africans through the servants that they had in Zamunda, who were servants who also kind of doubled up as sex slaves, and it was just very weird.
Would you like us to bathe you?
Just kind of felt very unnecessary. This is what a lot of Indigenous Africans and first-gen Africans have to deal with. The sexualization of Black African women and their bodies. Like, it was not cute. And they tried to make it fun. I just don't know. It was just like, no. In real life, a lot of these African servants going abroad are getting assaulted. So I don't know. I just feel like it was a bit tacky. Final key one is, they had these intervals of them fighting with bamboo sticks. Like, they were like bamboo warriors. And it's just like, we tend to just fight with our hands. Like, we fight with our hands like everyone else. So it was just kind of like, they're meant to be like, especially with the daughters, because he has like 4 daughters now. They were meant to be like African warrior princesses. And it was just like, okay, like, she just, like, every scene, the oldest daughter would just be like, with her stick. I'm just like, are we meant to see this and think cool? Because it just seemed like very theatrical to me. They didn't leave out the African American stereotypes. They did have quite a few of them in the movie as well. And the stereotypes that they had is with the son, because the son, you know, the son that he finds out that he has is meant to be from the Bronx and comes from a working class single mother family. And his whole thing is, you know, that kind of all my life I've had to fight narrative.
I come from a long line of broke ass nobodies. What the hell I was thinking that I could have this or any of it?
That was basically like his backstory. Like, it's old, it's tired. Like, even when he was living it up in the palace, he was still kind of like, oh, I don't deserve to be here. And honestly, I never get those storylines. Like, whatever race it is, like, you've leveled up in life and now you're like, oh my god, I don't deserve to be here. Bitch, if I came from poverty to a palace and everything was being done for me, I'm not complaining again ever in my life. So the whole all my life I've had to fight, even when he's in the palace, didn't make sense to me. And another stereotype is that his bastard son's mother was, you know, this dark-skinned, loud, obnoxious woman who was known as basically the neighborhood whore.
Y'all know I was a hoe though, right? Y'all know I was out in these streets?
You was the hoe.
You know, who drinks and smokes drugs, and, you know, another tied narrative. And another stereotype is that when the son and his mother went to Zamunda, they were just being really loud and obnoxious. Like, they didn't really carry themselves well. Even when they stepped in the palace, they were just hooting and hollering.
Hey, Quine, I'm sorry I slept with your man.
And it's like, everybody knows how to behave in certain situations. Whatever class you're from, you know how to behave in certain situations. So the fact that they were basically just being ratchet when they came to the palace didn't make sense to me, especially when we had seen a scene with the son where he was, you know, code switching for an interview. So the fact that now he's in the palace, they're just acting up, didn't make sense to me, personally. Which brings us on to the general comedic feel, the general comedy of the film. I feel like there were some moments in the film, I feel like there were funny jokes here and there, but overall, I was not really cackling. I was not laughing. I wasn't crying of laughter. Like, a lot of the jokes really didn't hit. And it was just sad. It was like, this is the jokes you're coming up with. You've had 30 years and these are the jokes that you're coming up with. I wanted more. I wanted more. The only kind of consistent comedic scene where I was giggling or at least, you know, coming to laugh in the scene consistently was the barbershop scene, because they kind of recreate the barbershop scene that was in the first film.
Those hungry babies with the flies on their face.
Hey, that's too much. Now, you stepped over the line. Now, we won't be talking that kind of shit about the hungry babies. You're going to get out of my chair.
So when they were in the barbershop, it was good. And there was one scene that was funny, which was near the beginning, when Hakeem went and found his son, and he was like to his son, like, come back to Zamunda with me and be a prince. And the son's like, nah. And then the suitcase falls open with money, and then the son's like,
who am I to say no to becoming a prince?
Maybe I don't want to live this poverty life anymore. Maybe I'm gonna come with you to the palace. So that was fun. I'd give them that. But the rest of it was dry. Drier than fufu with no soup. In terms of the plot of the movie is very predictable. And everything happens quite fast in the beginning. Like, you know, from him discovering he's got a son to finding his son was literally like in the space of 5 minutes. And it's just kind of like, whoa, where's the journey here? And then everything else was just pretty much predictable. You knew what was coming. You could predict what was happening, and then it happened. You could predict the conflicts. You could predict the conflicts being resolved. There was also random intervals of singing. Like every 10 minutes, there'd just be a performer in here. Like there were just cameos upon cameos. Like every black celebrity was like literally in this film. And I feel like half of the film was dedicated to making sure that you saw the cameos in this film. Like, I want to know what the budget was, because the amount of celebrities in this film, the budget must have been ridiculous. They also try and weave in this storyline of Zamunda being more progressive.
Because she's a woman? She can't be your heir?
Honestly, there was just a lot going on in this film. There was just a lot of filler, and sometimes I was a bit lost, and honestly, throughout most of the film, I lost interest. I got bored. When there's nothing exciting enough for me to even engage in throughout most of the film, that's a problem. And I feel like a lot of people are going to be disappointed, I think, with the structure, because I feel like they had a lot to work with in terms of the plot. Like him discovering he's got a son and the son now coming back to Zamunda could have been a really fun and exciting thing. And I don't know, maybe it's because of COVID, they had restrictions, but I was just disappointed when I was watching it. I was just like, man, 30 years? This is what you've given us? It was sad. It was sad. Structure was just a mess. It was so messy. It was just content. It was just, they threw footage together for a film and somehow managed to weave the basic narrative throughout the whole thing. In terms of the characters, pretty much all of the cast is back. But I just wasn't really impressed with any of the performances. I wasn't impressed with Eddie Murphy, you know, doing what he does and being multiple characters. They've got new characters. He's got 4 daughters now. Didn't care about them. Didn't care about the son. I didn't care about the son's mother. Didn't care about anyone, to be honest, because the film was so boring that there's no character investment. In terms of costume, I feel like costume was decent. I feel like there were some costumes that were done really nicely.
On that midnight train from Zamunda.
And then there was some that looked very costumey. Very Wakanda ripoff. So I'd say overall costume was decent. The set just didn't really give me Africa vibes, to be honest. I don't know where they were shooting. And overall, it just kind of felt very limited, the set. The CGI effect, some of it you could kind of tell with James Earl. Obviously, he was in there digitally because he couldn't travel for COVID. And I feel like they got away with it with James Earl. You could kind of tell.
Remember what I told you.
I was like, James Earl kind of looks a bit... Did James Earl die? Because it looks a bit CGI up in here. Like, it doesn't look like he's there. But obviously, because of his age, he couldn't travel. But the CGI lion... Now that looked very fake. That looked very fake, the CGI line that they had in there. Cinematography, basic. That's pretty much it, to be honest. I can't really think of anything else. But overall, I was very disappointed. I was very underwhelmed. And I think a lot of people are going to be underwhelmed. And I can only imagine if you actually paid to go to the cinema and watch this in the cinema, how disappointed you would have been. I expected better. And I think if you choose to watch this, when you finish, you will expect better. I don't know. Maybe you might feel differently. Maybe you might enjoy it. But it was very underwhelming. I think if you are going to watch it, it'll be good for background noise, but it just wasn't giving. It wasn't giving what I was expecting. And the fact that some people have been waiting 30 years for this. It's a bit of a scam, to be honest. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys. You could watch it and absolutely love it, but for me it was a no. I think overall, if I'm gonna rate it, I'll give it a solid 2 out of 5, to be honest. Were you planning on watching it, and after watching this review, are you still planning on watching it? Were you never kind of planning on watching it but just wanted to see what the reviews were? And if you have watched it, let me know what you thought about it. Did you like it? Did you not? I'd be interested to hear from you guys. As always, let me know what you thought of my commentary. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you have, don't forget to put my notification bell on so you know when my next video is dropping. I'm also trying to get to 2.8k subscribers. I'm almost there, and I appreciate if you help me reach that goal. And thank you to everybody who has subscribed to my channel so far. Till next time, guys, bye.